Hey y'all, so today we're going to be going over LARP arguments in LD, specifically on the neg, because LARP on the app is really just plans. Graham's going to be going over that in a separate video. So first, let's start off with the most basic that you all probably know about, which is disads. So disads are disadvantages to the affirmative and are very similar to neg contention. So commonly this means that you can either read just a more complex disad. You can also read them as, say, contention 1 is one disad, contention 2 is another disad, or split them off as 1 off, 2 off. But they are often more complex than your traditional contentions. So, for example, let's look to the September-October topic, which was in a democracy, voting ought to be compulsory. A common traditional neg contention was that compulsory voting harmed democracy, whereas a disad was like the elections disad. So that's a little more complex, a longer link chain, a more complex topic that sometimes isn't directly exactly what you would expect when first reading the topic. And the more complex commonly comes in the form of the link chain. It's not a direct compulsory voting causes this. Sometimes it's like, that's just the example for the topic. It's compulsory voting causes this, which then causes this. So it's sometimes more complex, multiple steps. And there are a few generic types. So the most infamous is the politics disad, which is pretty much saying the plan is going to impact our government in this way. So say the plan needs to pass through Congress, it's going to slow down another bill from passing, which is bad. Or like the example I just gave, because we're in 2020, obviously by the time you're watching this, it's not going to apply because the election will be over. But in September, October, it was very common to say that the actions of the affirmative will switch the results of the elections. And this will come up again in about 2 years with the midterms elections. So elections happens about every 2 years. And then there are a few core disads to every topic. So let's jump back to the Jan-Feb topic from last year, which was nuclear weapons. A core disad was the bioweapons disad, which says that when we eliminate nuclear weapons, they would be replaced with bioweapons, which would be worse. And then if it's an international topic, there will commonly be a relations disad, which says doing the plan will harm our relationship with blank country, and this is really bad. So like a very common example would be, say we took some international approach, it harms our relationship with China, which could lead to war with China, which would be really bad. So overall, they're very similar to the traditional contentions you've probably already been exposed to, just typically slightly more complex. So they could be read as a contention, but they can also be read as a separate off, like as a disad. And then second is the counterplan. The counterplan is an alternative to a plan that solves for all or portions of the affirmative impacts without causing other impacts to occur. So pretty much it's a better alternative that is not the status quo. So like, for example, let's go jump back to the compulsory voting topic. The plan could be implement compulsory voting. A counterplan could be implement automatic voter registration. So which is a uniquely different from compulsory voting, but still does not exist in the status quo. So the neg is taking actions. But a counterplan needs to be what we call competitive, which can be in two ways. So first is textually competitive, which means the counterplan text says something that the AF literally could not do. So say the app is implement compulsory voting, the counterplan text could be, we do not implement compulsory voting and blank. So that is something literally doing the app could not do the counterplan and the app at the same time. Or next is competitive through the net benefit. So the affirmative causes something, which is a reason why the counterplan is superior. So because if it's not competitive, it is then possible in the world of the AF, and the counterplan will lose to the perm. So with the net benefit, if they try to perm, you say, no, you still caused this net benefit, which is a reason why the counterplan alone is superior. And they can be advantage counterplans which solve only a part of the AF, or counterplans that aim to solve the entire AF. So a very common type is changing the actor of the affirmative. So say it was a topic which specified, and the plan specified that Congress would do it, they could switch it to say the courts will do it. So this is one example. Or another one is a consult counterplan. So pretty much the United States does something, and then a counterplan could be the United States does something after consulting China. So this is just another one of the ways that you try to create a better world than the affirmative. It's pretty much an alternative world that is superior to the world of the affirmative. And so it'll solve either part of the entire of the affirmative plus another impact. So the importance of a net benefit. A net benefit is typically a disad that the counterplan does not link into, but the affirmative does link into. And it's the reason why most counterplans are competitive and the affirmative cannot win using the perm. Because without the net benefit, the counterplan would do nothing because they would just perm it and be able to move on. So you can do this in two ways. So first you can read it as a separate off. So say it's 3 off a counterplan and 2 disads, and both disads could be a net benefit to the counterplan. Or you could read 1 off, which is the counterplan and the net benefit all one argument, and then like say another disad. And this means one of the benefits of reading it separately though is you can go for the counterplan and the disad or just the disad in the 2NR. So this allows for some strategic decision making. So if you feel you're losing the counterplan but you're still winning the disad, you can just go for the disad. And you can always read multiple net benefits of the counterplan. It just still has to abide by this standard of it links into the affirmative, not the counterplan. And then picks are plan-inclusive counterplans, and it is what it sounds like. It's a counterplan that does most of the affirmative and only changes part of it. So there are 2 types, which a normal pick, which is taking a part of the AF and combining it with a different idea or just defending that. So like cutting out part of the AF or cutting it out and combining it with something else. So for example, on the nuclear weapons topic, one plan could be eliminate nukes in India and Pakistan. A pick could be just Pakistan, and then read a disad for why eliminating nukes in India is bad. And they wouldn't be able to perm that because that would be something we call severance. So severance is when you kick out of part of the affirmative. I'll get more to that later. But the second is a word pick, which is when you change either one word in the plan text or the affirmative, and often that word is linked to structural violence impact, and changing that part of the affirmative approves it. So for example, if the plan text used a slur or there was a slur present in the affirmative, you could say we defend the entire affirmative except the use of this specific word. And then another example, this can be broad or specific. There was in my 8th grade year, I believe the policy topic was, should we do something, U.S. relationship with China? And it was a recommendation instead of just saying like, China, it was saying the People's Republic of China because that's what they recognize themselves as. So just stuff like that. And very common ones though are like ableist slur being present or a sexist term being present in the affirmative, and you defend the entirety of the affirmative minus just that word. And often picks are competitive because they're textually competitive, which is the first type I was talking about. So they don't necessarily need a net benefit. They often have one, but they're also just textually competitive. So they have the net benefit, which is the reason to prefer them, but they can't be perm because they're textually competitive, because the affirmative cannot be both India and Pakistan and just Pakistan. They would have to kick out a part of their plan, which is called severance, and is super abusive because they get to just change their affirmative strat later in the round, and it makes it impossible to be neg, because if they read a plan text in the 1AC, they have to stick by that. And then finally, topicality. Topicality is going to be addressed later in another video on the theory and T lecture, but I just wanted to give a brief overview because typically it's included in LARP. It's just topicality included under LARP defines a core word of the resolution and a reason why that definition and why the affirmative does not abide by that definition and therefore is not topical. So a very common type is T eliminate. So say eliminate, they argue eliminate means 3% and they only eliminate 2%. Therefore, they do not actually eliminate and are non-topical. So there's just many different ways of wording of the resolution. There's no like basic arguments for them because it changes with every resolution and every wording. So overall, topicality, LARP is just a definition and then standards and reasons why this means they're non-topical and therefore should lose their round. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can always reach out to any members of the Tempus community or any of your older debate members on your team or coaches or anyone in the community. But overall, that's the overview to LARP debate. So yeah, I hope that was in some way helpful.